Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of our Radar special edition from the Paris Air Show. All this week, we're taking you on a tour behind the scenes at this gathering nobody wants to miss. Pros and fans are enjoying the world's biggest aviation, defense, and space event, which is back after a 4-year hiatus. And today, we meet a through-and-through aviation fan, a man who is so keen on the world of flight that he devotes a large part of his leisure time to it. What does the Paris Air Show feel like to an aviation enthusiast, and what sparked his interest? We're going to talk about all that with our special guest, Laurent Grassin. Hello, Laurent.
Good morning, Joanna.
Thanks for giving us some of your time here at the Paris Air Show. Before you tell us about yourself, Laurent, and where you caught the aviation bug, you have chosen to begin our tour on the runway at Le Bourget, and more exactly, in an area dedicated to the U.S. Air Force. Could you start by telling us which aircraft you wanted to show us and why you brought us to this area?
Let's begin with an F-15E, which is the most recent iteration of the F-15, an aircraft which is now more than 40 years old. And why this area? Because it's symbolic. And why this plane? Because the F-15 had a powerful impact on me as a kid. I think you catch this bug early, and this plane so encapsulates everything aviation means to me. And why the U.S. Air Force? That's because of a memory from my young years. My first visit to the Paris Air Show here in Le Bourget in the early 1990s. It was my first time on this runway, surrounded by these planes. All wide-eyed at the sight of these aircrafts I had only seen in books or on television.
If you agree, we're going to describe this plane for our listeners. When we stopped in front of it, I said, a fighter aircraft. And you said, no, not exactly.
Yes, not exactly, because if we go into detail, this is a version E, which is a ground attack version. It is interesting to see what the F-15 was like originally. It was built for purpose. The F-15 was designed as an air interceptor for dogfights. And afterwards, McDonnell Douglas and the Boeing realized that the airframe had great potential, so it could become a multi-purpose aircraft, especially in attack and support. They converted the plane, and it became the F-15E, which made its first appearance during the Gulf War. It is still in active service today, after a fair number of upgrades. Over the past 30 years, it has been in all the theaters of war involving the United States Armed Forces.
As an aviation fan, I presume that the Paris Air Show holds a special place in your heart. What does it feel like to come here and to walk around the middle of all these aircrafts, rockets, and helicopters?
It means being able to touch things which are somewhat inaccessible, especially in the military field. It's relatively simple to take a plane to fly somewhere, and the airports is a contact area. But in the plane itself, we don't have this genuine, tangible, physical contact with the aircraft. That's what Le Bourget is. As I was saying earlier, all the aircrafts we dream about, the ones we see in books, they are all really here. You get a sense of their size, too. We don't realize until we see it. Compare and to say to ourselves, hey, I'm not much bigger than the F-15's landing gear. It's all impressive stuff. You see a piece of the A380's fin in the distance, and you know that the A380 has been much seen and much talked about everywhere. Seeing the plane for real is exhilarating. That's what I love when I'm on the runway.
Our dear listeners can't see our guest, Laurent Grassin, but I assure you, he is quite a lot bigger than landing gear. As you told us, we know that you first came to the Paris Air Show at the beginning of the 1990s, and that you have always loved planes. What sparked your interest in planes?
Let's say that we have to identify the defining moment. Maybe it was the day that my father brought me a scale model. I think that's how it started for many people. In my case, with a scale model of a Spitfire Mark 9 back in the day. I started to make the scale model with much help from my dad, because you have to stick a lot of things together, and I think that I would have done something really awful if he hadn't helped me. Anyway, we put this plane together, and compared to a child's toy, the plane itself is truly magnificent. This thing is truly superb. I think that's when it started, and afterwards, there were others. You buy other scale models, you find out about other planes, you read books about them, and off you go.
As we walk across the tarmac, Laurent, there's a helicopter up there that has a few tricks up its sleeve, so to speak. We saw it loop the loop, we saw it flying backwards. What is that thing?
It's going into a loop. It's doing it, and it stops just short. It's the Tiger. Just wow. The Tiger's display is brilliant. It's practically stopped, stood still, nosedived and swung back up. It's everything we love about flying. Inventing machines that fly around in the air and also blow your mind.
Is what we're watching really a technical triumph?
Oh yes. Its maneuverability is amazing. It can do pretty wild things for a helicopter. France definitely knows how to make helicopters. We should be prouder of that. It's amazing to see it up in the air.
I was about to ask you about that. Is our aviation know-how something we should be proud of in France?
Absolutely. I don't think we're as proud as we should be. We may tend to take it all for granted, but we are one of the countries that matter in the aviation world. We are at the cutting edge of technology, and we have men and women with fantastic skills. So yes, we have every reason to be proud.
After watching the Tiger demonstration, Laurent, let's circle back to the subject of French know-how. When we prepared this podcast, I asked you what you absolutely didn't want to miss at the air show. And you didn't think twice. The Dassault stand.
You absolutely have to see it.
And the Rafale simulator here on the stand is a huge hit.
You have the Rafale simulator and all these Rafale scale models showing all the configurations and deliveries of the countries that brought the Rafale planes recently. It's an amazing stand.
What does this stand, and more generally, the Dassault name, mean to you? Why did you want to see it?
Every aviation enthusiast, and especially every military aviation enthusiast, has to stop by the Dassault stand. It's France's brand. It's France's plane manufacturer. It's the bedrock of our sovereignty. And more basically, as Marcel Dassault said, and you may have heard, for an aircraft to fly well, it must be beautiful. I think there's that too. They are simply beautiful planes. Maybe as simple as that. When you look at the Rafale, you see the design never gets old. You can see in all these mock-ups, there's something bordering on artistic about the silhouettes. At the risk of sounding pompous, it's French elegance. That's another reason why I wanted to stop by the Dassault stand.
Laurent, we know you're here because you're a huge aviation fan. You also wanted to be a pilot at one point. But that didn't happen in the end.
That dream didn't last long, no.
But you're still a huge aviation fan. How has that evolved during your life?
Well, I have to admit, I wasn't all that great at math. A pilot has to be very good at math. I wasn't. You can't see me, but I wear glasses too. So my chances of being a pilot were slim, and that dream didn't last long. But the passion did. It has always been there. It evolved into a hobby. I read about it, watch films, watch videos, make scale models, and have met so many people who feel the same. At one point in my career, I went to work for Air et Cosmos, the best-known French weekly for aerospace and defense. I was directly involved in preparing magazines about the subject. I have always found a way to make room, to make a lot of room, for aviation in my life. Being here is one example of that.
Are you one of those plane spotters who gather at Charles de Gaulle and Orly?
Yes, from time to time after work. The last time I had a tough day. I live in the east of Paris and rushed to Roissy up north and parked my motorcycle by the runway. Yes, it's a cliché, but it's true. I find airports are as fascinating as planes. So, I spent a quarter of an hour watching life in an airport. Then I headed home.
We are facing the Rafale by the Dassault stand, and if we turn 90 degrees, oh, what do you know?
Safran's stand.
Totally by chance, Safran's magnificent stand. Safran also embodies France's know-how. We said it while you're watching the Tiger. France has solid expertise in the aviation sector.
How many countries can make airplanes engines? We don't think about that often enough nowadays. The answer is not many, and we are fortunate in France to have a company that knows how to make airplane engines, how to make civil aircraft engines, and how to make military aircraft engines, how to make helicopter engines. We are looking at everything we love about aviation, the innovation, the passion, and the issues around sovereignty too. Because it is one of the things that make us a country that matters. And it is forward-looking. The goal nowadays isn't to make faster engines. It may be to make them as fast as before, but they have to be more economical. They are just as serious and determined to tackle these challenges as they were to tackle other challenges in the past.
Is Safran a brand every aviation fan has to know?
Yes, definitely. If you're an aviation fan in French, you know Safran. It's a group that matters, and we're proud it's a French group.
Thank you very much, Laurent Grassin, for spending time with us. We'll let you go so you can enjoy the rest of the show now. It's amazing how your eyes light up when you stroll around. Thank you for showing us the Paris Air and Space Show through your enthusiastic eyes. Enjoy the show. I hope you learned lots of things. We'd love to hear all about it on Radar. Thank you very much, and thank you all for listening. We'll be back tomorrow for a new episode of Radar.